past weekend was the feast of Christ the King, and it's one of my favorite feasts. And it reminds me of when I was back in college. I used to work at the summer playground for kids that were from like preschool to 8th grade, and the staff members and we used to play this one game that was totally awful. Like we would make up stories, and if we could get the kids to believe what we were saying, we would win the game. And I was really, really good at it. And the one thing that I told the students is that I was the king of Korea, and that I was exiled here from Korea to work at this playground. I remember this one student, he was like, sir, what does exiled mean? I was like, okay, that's too confusing for him. So then, but there was one boy that he came up to me, and he was older, and he said to me, Matt, I know that you are not a king. And I was like, well, why do you say that? And he goes, well, you're not a king because you're not big enough. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you know, kings are supposed to be strong and big and powerful. And I thought about that this past weekend on the Feast of Christ the King. What does it really mean to be a king? When I think of Jesus, you know, there is a part of that that is very true, that Jesus is powerful, he's almighty, he calls us to be disciples, he demands us to love others and love the weak. But most of all, who Jesus is as king isn't totally about power or being domineering. We see in the gospel that the true meaning of what it means to be king is Jesus as a shepherd, someone that loves his sheep and is willing to lay down his life for the sheep. In the same way, he does the same thing for us, is that the true meaning of who Jesus is that he loves us so much that he humbles himself and will lay down his life for us. Another image for that is chess. If you have ever played that game before, you know that the king is the most important piece, and without the king, the whole game has no meaning. But at the same time, the king is the weakest piece, and the game ends is when the king lays down his life for his people so that the rest of the pieces don't die. In the same way, Jesus is the same way. He lays down his life for us. So my prayer that this Advent is that we truly come to know of who Jesus is as king, and that we would follow his example.